we are proud to unveil Universal Studios' Islands of Adventure.
Far corners of the world, some fantastic journeys yet to be. As Universal Studios' Islands of Adventure come to life before your eyes.
So as someone who moved to Florida a while ago, I decided to get what was known as an annual pass for a theme park. While Florida is definitely known for its theme parks, my choice inevitably came down to two options: Disney or Universal. It was actually a really difficult choice, as I've been to Disney parks a handful of times starting in my 20s, and my god, I still love them. I decided on Universal, the deciding factor being my trip in late 2022 to Islands of Adventure.
Welcome to Islands of Adventure, where the adventure comes alive.
Now, before we get too far, let's just do a quick little history lesson. In 1990, Universal Studios decided that they wanted to try going into the theme park business full-time. Mainly spurred by the success of their tram tour in Hollywood, they thought they could possibly turn stops on the tour into major attractions. While it was a gamble and the park would struggle for years even after the disastrous opening, it was still seen as a success.
Rise of movies.
Universal Creative then decided that they wanted to take another gamble, to open a second park with theming to rival that of Disney. This park was initially based entirely around cartoon characters, and Warner Brothers were approached to license their characters to flesh out the park, namely with DC superheroes and Looney Tunes. However, Warner Brothers decided to back down, and Universal went with a small, struggling publisher known as Marvel.
This is Marvel Superhero Island. We are surrounded by the most treacherous villains and the greatest heroes in the entire comic universe.
At this point, Jurassic Park the Ride was also a huge success back in Hollywood, so it was needed in Florida. It was originally going to go into the Studios Park, where Men in Black is, but instead became a flagship part of the new park. The cartoon aspect of the park would be maintained with Toon Lagoon, along with Seuss Landing, which was based around the works of Dr. Seuss. However, there needed to be cohesion. There was a space left for one more land, and that land would become the Lost Continent. Which we'll get into detail when we get to that part of the park. As such, each entry was based around being an island of some kind, with the entrance being called the Port of Entry, with the Pharos Lighthouse being the headlining icon.
Our first stop is the Port of Entry, where we are welcomed by the island's charming and mysterious citizens.
Hey!
City Walk was also constructed at the time to connect both parks and to serve as an adult shopping district, but that's for another time. As such, in 1999, Islands of Adventure would open to the public, and it was very rocky.
Islands of Adventure, the most amazing theme park ever created. Now thrilling families at Universal Orlando. Step inside the whimsical world of Dr. Seuss. Explore the real-life Jurassic Park. Ride with Spider-Man in the world's most spectacular 3D adventure. Come visit the all-new Islands of Adventure, one of two must-see theme parks at Universal Orlando.
While yes, the events of 9/11 did impact it, there was a lot of confusion as to what this park was supposed to be. Not helped that Universal decided to call the whole resort Universal Escape. This created confusion on if people should go or escape, or if Islands was just another expansion onto the original park. While it did do fine enough, it wasn't an explosive hit that the company expected until 2010. In 2010, opening to the public in collaboration with Warner Brothers and J.K. Rowling, the wizarding world of Harry Potter opened up at Islands of Adventure. It was also largely responsible for revitalizing Universal theme parks as a whole. This also allowed for further developments at Islands of Adventure, such as Skull Island Reign of Kong, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, trademark, and the Velocicoaster in a pseudo-Jurassic World area. Alright, now that I've dedicated the first page to just setting up the theme park, I can actually talk about, what the video is about. That being, how Islands of Adventure is meant to be experienced and the flow of its narrative. I say that because I often talk to people who just purely see it as an amusement park. Even though it's a theme park, the whole point is that you're experiencing a theme. There is a distinction with people crafting a believable world. I say this because, in comparison, Universal Studios Florida, which is right next door, is a bit of a weird jumble with basically no cohesion at this point. As such, I wanted to outline the flow of Islands of Adventure, and what the artists and designers intended with the order and placement of the lands. Though I can only really talk about in regards to today as it currently stands, I really don't think it changes my thoughts that much. With all that out of the way, I believe we can get started. So the entrance to any park is extremely important. This is going to set the tone for your day. It's the mission statement for what the entire park is about. Think about Main Street USA at Disneyland or at the Magic Kingdom. It's meant to invoke not only nostalgia for a simpler time, but also that of imagination. Isn't it kind of weird that you have an old-time American town from the early 20th century and straight ahead is a medieval fantasy castle? It is, unless you use your imagination. Like when you were a kid and you would mix and match things in your mind. It sets the tone that everything you will see is that of imagination, places and times that never were but always will be. As such, Port of Entry at Islands of Adventure invokes that spirit of adventure. It's an entrance area with shopping and dining, but the area is meant to invoke that of a bustling port.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you fortune. I'm very, very good. Yeah, let me see the hand. Yeah, very good. Oh, this is very exciting. You're gonna get a little wet.
People coming and going with various means of transportation, possibly going to and from different islands with adventure filled in them. The music perfectly sets the tone with a whimsical violin greeting you in the morning as you hear the sounds of bustling people and straining wood, meant to convey energy and action in the area, with buildings mixing and matching, while also feeling extremely lived in. Also, if you take the time to look, there's a ton of stories going on as you really feel like that there's people living in this place. So as you exit the port of entry, you're greeted with the view of every island in the park and are given a choice. As the music reaches its heightened climax, ready to send you off on your grand adventure. On the left is Marvel's Superhero Island, and on the right is Seuss Landing. While you could go either way, I think the intended order is that you start with Seuss Landing and then go counterclockwise. This is because of how the signs are placed and from promotional material that present them in this order. As such, you take the right path. Seuss Landing will start as your opening act of the day.
Seuss Landing is truly one of a kind. It's the first and only place on Earth where the outrageous literary creations of Dr. Seuss come to life.
While one would dismiss this area as just a kids area, it's more than just that. Of course, there are plenty of areas and rides here for young kids to enjoy. There are two rides that I'd like to highlight here. One being The Cat in the Hat. The ride is basically a retelling of the book by the same name. As such, it's an oddly satisfying ride. The voice work is solid, the animatronics are aged, but still are alright. The music surprises me every time, especially as you start to get into the middle section. However, because the attraction was meant to spin more than it does now, this means that the pacing is off in some scenes. Along with the lack of major refurbishment, which makes things a little rough. However, it gives you a solid taste of what to expect. It is one of the few dark rides Universal has to offer, so take it while you can. The other ride is High in the Sky Seuss Trolley Train Ride, trademark, which is a people mover style ride over Seuss Landing, and you actually get some good views while one of two narrations happen. Both feature the narrator talking about the sights that you can see with a special Seuss charm. As a whole, Seuss Landing is a great land to start off with. It's easy enough with some taste of some of the more thrilling attractions that you'll see later on. It even ends with a sign and voices saying goodbye as you cross over the bridge. The bridge to the lost continent.
Just over the bridge from Seuss Landing, we are swept into a mysterious world. A mythical land, long buried beneath the sea in the ruins of ancient history. A realm of power, pageantry, and glory.
Behold Atlantis! Greetings, travelers. I am Merlin. Welcome to the Lost Continent.
Alright, so here's where things get complicated, but I'll try to keep it as simple as I can. When the park was being made, there was a feeling that there was too much of a cartoon focus, considering that Jurassic Park was the main anchor attraction. As such, one more land was needed to create a balance. Since a bunch of people working on the project were former Disney Imagineers who were snubbed from making Beastly Kingdom at Animal Kingdom, they were given the opportunity to create whatever land they wanted. As such, the Lost Continent was made.
Civilization of Atlantis was known throughout the ancient heavens for its bounty and its beauty.
A land based around human myth and stories, heroes and monsters clashing together. The land was divided into 3 sections that focused on different grand types of myth and adventure. The Lost City, Sinbad's Bazaar, and Merlin Wood. Now, most people know it today as the area you have to pass through in order to get the Hogsmeade. Before we get into what happened, let's give a summary of what the land used to be. From Seuss Landing, you enter into the Lost City, where you're greeted by the walk-through attraction, Poseidon's Fury. For the record, this was the only attraction from the Lost Continent I was actually able to experience firsthand, as it permanently closed May 9th, 2023. The attraction had you in a tour group led by rookie archaeologist Taylor, as they fill in for the missing Professor Baxter. While trying to buy time, they accidentally discover a secret passage written on the wall, which reveals the backstory of the attraction. That, long ago, Poseidon had a battle with one of his high priests, Lord Darkanon. God, I love how late 90s that name is. Both were destroyed, but now with Taylor saying the chant, Darkanon has risen again with plans on using the tour group as a sacrifice. It's up to Taylor to find the courage to wield Poseidon's trident and restore him to full power. I must note that the original version of this attraction was majorly different, involving Poseidon fighting Zeus trying to kill us for trespassing. However, that version barely lasted a year. The attraction that lasted 24 years is the one I saw, and while it was definitely cheesy and had weird technical problems, it was absolutely great to see at least once. The physical sets going on, the story that took itself the right amount of serious, and of course, the water tunnel. This was such a huge spectacle that this was basically what the entire attraction was based around. After escaping, you would then enter Sinbad's Bazaar, where you would watch a cheesier live-action show.
Voyage of Sinbad.
I know, amazing, right? I've seen numerous recordings online, and while I think I could have enjoyed it, I can see why it closed in 2018. I do think it added something important to this part of the park. I see it as, while it's still pretty light on intensity, this is where we start to see those intense elements enter. This is the rising actions as things start to heat up compared to Seuss Landing. Finally, we get our real taste of intense action with Merlin Wood and dueling dragons.
This is the castle of Merlinwood Forest, the site of a powerful battle between 2 fearsome dueling dragons, one with breath of fire and the other ice. Once inside these walls, there is no escape but to ride the dragon.
Based around Arthurian legend and our first true roller coaster. Yes, Trolley is technically a roller coaster, but you know what I mean. It was a dueling coaster where you would ride an ice dragon or a fire dragon. The first true intense part of the park. That was until 2010. Yes, here we are today, where Harry Potter has taken over Merlin Wood and turned it into Hogsmeade. Now, I must confess, I honestly know next to nothing about Harry Potter beyond what I understand from cultural osmosis. However, I do think that this area of the park still works in the transition to the more intense parts of the park. There's 3 rides, technically 4 with the Hogwarts Express, but that's really just a way to get to studios. However, the 2 worth really noting are Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey and Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. Trademark. The first to open was Forbidden Journey, which is alright in my opinion, though would probably be more amazing if I was a Harry Potter fan. In it, Dumbledore has decided to open Hogwarts to muggles to see the wizarding world. Once in, Harry and his friends decide to sneak you into a Quidditch match in a closet, I think. Anyway, chaos ensues. This is the first intense dark ride a person would encounter so far, and actually introduces some major diving and rough moments. While still having a happy ending, you go face to face with dragons, spiders, a pissed off tree, a pissed off prep kid, and these are Dementors, right? I don't know, I think they suck at you. I don't know. The other attraction is Hagrid's yada yada yada, which is a roller coaster, but not a hyper intense one. The idea being that Hagrid is taking you on a tour to see some of the magical animals. Chaos ensues. While yes, this is very intense as a coaster, it's not as intense as the other two at the park, but I do see this as the full transition point. This is the point where things start really getting intense as you head into Jurassic Park.
Ever since we saw the first movie, we've wondered, what would it be like to jump back 65 million years to Earth's primordial past, to a time when dinosaurs ruled? Well, now we can. Hey, there's Mr. Hammond, the man who created it all.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
And world. Slightly complicated, but we don't need to go into that much detail. We'll just break it up into Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. First is Jurassic Park with 3 notable areas. Seeing as this is the midpoint of the park, the attractions in this section get more intense. That being, people die and dinosaurs are after you.
Things get a little hairy.
What if the dinosaurs get out again? I mean, could they?
This is because the theme of the area is not just Jurassic Park. This is Isla Adventura, where John Hammond has decided to try opening another park off the coast of Florida. Mind you, this is supposed to take place after the Lost World Jurassic Park, where he became an environmentalist, though he did encourage Mascherani to open Jurassic World, so I don't know. The main point is, like the middle of the story, this is where things start coming into conflict. This is the first time where we really get the intense rides and scenarios. Jurassic Park River Adventure is about the raptors escaping and letting out more vicious predators on the island with staff dying. You are on your own with no one really around to help you. You don't have Poseidon or Harry Potter or Hagrid to bail you out. You're on your own. Velocicoaster also ties into this with a story that honestly deserves a video itself. The idea being that Jurassic World has decided to open a new roller coaster inside the raptor paddock, and guests have to go face to face alongside the raptors and over the Mosasaur Lagoon. Owen repeatedly states that you are on your own with this exercise and it's not safe, which, funnily enough, is one of the few Universal attractions where the narrative is that everything goes according to plan. So, after you reach the midpoint of the park, we start leveling down in intensity just a little bit. As you leave Jurassic Park, you take a detour to Skull Island, which is very awkwardly placed. It's not even an island so much as just an attraction they really want to bring over from the tram tour. It uses that awful bus theater system that's shared with Fast and the Furious Supercharged.
Let's go, Cookie Puss.
Mind you, it's better than Fast and Furious Supercharged, but that's not saying much. While this one is also intense, I would argue that this is the cool down from Jurassic Park. People survive and you're rescued by peril by King Kong, though it's debated if he should still be a hero. Finally, you reach a true calm point as you reach Toon Lagoon.
The journey back from Jurassic Park leads us right into the funny papers. Before we can say, are we having fun yet? We find ourselves captured in the hilarious comic adventures of the famous cartoon stars of Toon Lagoon.
Step back, step back, step back, police.
There are stakes here and some intensity, but they aren't nearly as harsh as those at Jurassic Park or Skull Island. There's more chippier music and 2 rides in the area that are more cartoon-like whimsy, those being Dudley Do-Right Rips Off Falls, which has you riding through a Dudley Do-Right cartoon. The other being Popeye and Bluto's Bilge Rat Barges, where you ride through a Popeye cartoon. You ever notice that the rides in this area have really long names? The area seems to have similarities to Seuss Landing at first, considering the more whimsical styles and lightheartedness compared to the rest of the islands. However, there is a difference. These rides feature more narrative-based experiences, as they both deal with the protagonist dealing with the antagonist. For slightly different reasons, but I mean, come on, we've all seen a Popeye cartoon. These are more clear-cut and give you a feeling of triumph, especially after the dubious narratives presented at Jurassic Park. Finally, after leaving Toon Lagoon, you reach the finale of the park, Marvel's Superhero Island.
Compared to our next adventure, Toon Lagoon is a walk in the park.
Tonight, the Sinister Syndicate has taken its criminal rampage to a new level.
Here, there's 4 attractions, but major 2 that we need to look at are the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk Coaster. See, I see these attractions as your grand finale to the day, but since they're tied to comics, They naturally flow from the cartoon newspaper strip inspired by Toon Lagoon and into the Marvel comic style. In the Spider-Man ride, you take on the role as the general public sent into the experimental vehicle called Scoop by J. Jonah Jameson from the Daily Bugle. Doc Ock and the Sinister Syndicate have a anti-gravity ray which is wreaking havoc over the city, though thankfully you have Spider-Man on your side. This is an area where you experience more intensity in the narrative compared to Toon Lagoon. It's not that much more. After all, Spider-Man is with you the entire time to make sure that you are saved and feel triumphant as he webs up all the bad guys. The final ride closest to port of entry is the Incredible Hulk Coaster.
Are you ready for the greatest ride on the island? You come out like a bullet, then invert into a 110-foot rolling dive. G-forces you can only dream about. And then, you go weightless. But hey, you're upside down, so what does it matter? You're gonna want to do it again.
In this ride, you're again in the general public as you are strapped into a gamma radiation experiment chamber and shoot out as you feel the effects of becoming a Hulk, storming through the lagoon and then into the training field. While this does present the narrative of lost control, I would argue that you're in a training field and you get to feel heroic just as much as Spider-Man did. And so you return to port of entry, the music swelling as you leave on a departing note.
What incredible adventures! And what unforgettable memories! Each unique, action-packed island is filled with more family fun and excitement than you can ever imagine. Now we know what they mean when they invite us to live the adventure.
Islands of Adventure is one that seems like a random grab bag of themes at first. Lord knows, I did not understand the park for the longest time. However, the park has slowly been creeping up on people's lists as the best theme park in Orlando, and I can see why. There is an intentionality here that people are just starting to realize. Everything here is placed where it is for a reason, like that you would see in a story. The introduction, the rising action, the climax, falling action, third act twist, and then the finale. Of course, people bounce around the park, but laid out like this, it's an interesting narrative to be seen. Unlike Universal Studios Florida as it currently stands, the theming here doesn't clash with the philosophy of the park. You are immersed in the areas you're in as everything tries its best to fully capture you. Now, it isn't perfect. There are some things that are dated, and it wasn't fully appreciated unless you really care for the properties in the area it's based around. I always wonder, when I'm waiting for Repsaw Falls, how many people online even know who Dudley Do-Right is. However, when people spend a lot of time and money for a theme park, even if they don't understand or appreciate it, the park needs to have a philosophy, a narrative, one that brings people in to enjoy the world around them. After all, you can't just have any of these lands anywhere. It'd be weird if Jurassic Park was right next to Port of Entry and Seuss Landing where Jurassic Park was. It'd be a bizarre choice and really wouldn't make any sense. In summation, Islands of Adventure has quickly become a favorite of mine, and I will not be shocked if it gets more popular than it currently is. Also, considering that this was Universal's first attempt at really themed areas not based on a pre-existing mold, it really makes me excited for Epic Universe. Will there be a similar narrative flow? How will the universe themes set up the areas around you? Will it carry on that spirit of adventure?
Towering before you stands the domain of Titans. Here the forces of evil will challenge superheroes with powers far beyond the imaginations of mere mortals.